We got one more guest, one more segment left for this week on Bang the Book Radio. That is with Brent, the head risk manager down at DSI Sportsbook. A lot of sharp action in college football and the NFL. Lots of talking points, lots of stuff for us to go over. Once again, recorded that on Skype, so you will notice the volume difference and things of that sort. Do everything I can in the editing process. I think it comes out pretty well. But still, in any event, the segment with Brent recorded via Skype. So keep that in mind here as you're listening along. But here is this week's version of the Odds Report with Brent from DSI Sportsbook.
All right, I'm joined now by Brent, the head risk manager down at DSI Sportsbook for this week's version of the Odds Report. Brent, how's it going today, man?
Well, I woke up and found out it was week 4 of the NFL already. It's just like, it's crazy how fast this came upon us and how it's going.
Well, think about it. Just 6 weeks until college basketball, which I know is your favorite sport. So yeah. I know you're looking forward to those long days and nights. But in any event, we got a lot of games to get to here, both in college and the NFL. So no reason to waste any time here as we go ahead and start on Saturday. Game 115-116, Wake Forest and Boston College, side and total getting some sharp interest there at DSI this week.
Yeah, and I mean, you can see the way the lines have moved as well. This one here, we got money already on Boston College. This number, I don't know like how it got bet up or where it got bet up so much. Like I see the opening numbers were kind of low, like 4.5 and 5. At least that's what it says on the screen. I got, whether public money drove that up, I don't know. I mean, you are talking about a Wake Forest team that is undefeated so far, and I think they're tipping like the top 25. I think I saw there was somewhere around 26 if the ratings went that far. But I do have home dog money, which obviously is kind of one of those spots, as you know, Adam, where kind of sharp guys will go to in games like this. Again, it's a big game for these two teams with Boston College at 3-1, but sharp money at +7 on Boston College. You've seen that the total actually got bet up as well, and again, I think you talk about how the sharp money comes in. Sometimes it's initial with a number. Maybe there was sharp money elsewhere in the market that that got bet on Wake Forest -5 or 5.5, whatever, and drove it up to 7. And there's you get sharps who have differing opinions, and the opinion in the house here was on Boston College +7. Pretty much the same thing with the total. Now the total, usually you've got your counts favoring the over, and that's no different here. I've got it in count almost 5-1 favoring the over. So it looks to me that it was public money that drove this number up. It touched, and again, it's kind of like a waiting game. You talk about like when's the right time to strike. Well, this number got as high as 70, and that's where it started coming back down. So I got sharp money at under 70 there. And now we're down to 68.5, I think is the lowest number on the board. So got driven up from a low number up to 70. Sharp money took the under 70. Now it's down 1.5 to 68.5. Sidewise, as I said, it got bet up again, like from 4.5. Well, 5 is where it opened it in here, up to 7. Sharp money came in on Boston College out to 7 and grabbed that.
Well, and of course, as we've talked about too, you have to move kind of in concert with the rest of the market because you don't want to be exposed at 5.5 if the rest of the market's at 6.5. And there are head fakes. There are some setups early in the week where somebody out there wants a +7. They're going to do what they need to do early in the week to try and get it. That is something we see in the college football market and the NFL market quite often.
Yeah, I mean, it obviously takes, depending on the size of the game, if you will, and the size being the importance of the game, whether you're talking, Utah, Washington State, or you're talking Akron, Massachusetts. I mean, you got it takes different amount of money to move different games based on how big they are. But yeah, that definitely does happen in terms of lower limits. You bet a lower amount to drive a number up, and then when the limits open up, you hit it big.
All right, so we move to the MAC here. Game 123-124, Buffalo on the road in Oxford to take on Miami of Ohio. This has been a one-way mover, and it doesn't seem like you've gotten much buyback either.
Yeah, no, I mean, the truth is I didn't really want to include this game in our conversation just because the line has moved so much. But I mean, I can't, I don't like picking and choosing what games to talk about. I'd rather just talk about the information that I have at my disposal. And that was sharp money here on this game with Buffalo +2. As you see, looking at your Don Best screen, you can see they're a road favorite now of 3. So you're going from a small dog of +2 all the way up to -3. And that number is painted across the board. So just all one-way action on Buffalo. Obviously, it's not, a game where you got a whole lot of public money involved. I do have my count is almost like dead even. So it's not like I've got, just one-way action or any of that, but it's just the fact that the sharp money came in where it did. I'm expecting that probably elsewhere when this number, even when it flipped to Buffalo -1, I'm sure there was sharp money that drove it that way as well. Because as I mentioned, I mean, the public's just slightly involved in this game. Yeah, the counts, close to even, slightly favors Buffalo, sure, but not enough to drive a number this way.
Well, I think what is important to point out, again, sometimes you don't want to mention games where the line has just kind of gotten away, but I mean, this one from +2 to -3 relatively early in the week, which I think is, still a telling enough sign for us to be able to talk about a game like this.
Yeah, for sure. And the fact that it's, when it flips from 2 down to a pick or -1, that's one thing. But when it gets from, like I said, I can pretty much guarantee you that was more sharp money that came on Buffalo when it was a pick, when it was -1 to get to the -3. It just wouldn't move that much if it wasn't sharp money. I didn't take that sharp money in-house other than the +2, but I'm sure it did out there in the market.
All right, so we move here to game 133, 134, the absolute game of the week. This one's a true banger. This is a game that everyone's going to be talking about by the end of the year. Akron and UMass. And we do have sharp action on this game.
I sense a little bit of sarcasm there,
Just a little bit.
Adam. Yeah, I mean, big move on this one as well. The number opened as low as 4.5 out in the market. I didn't open that low, but I did open at 5. It did, it just ticked up to 5.5. I took sharp money at the -5, -5.5, sorry, and it's gone all the way up to 7, touched the 7. It's past 7 now. It's a 7.5 flat, or 7.5, maybe dog 15 out there. So this is obviously just all one-way action on Akron here. And again, it's tough when you're talking about teams like Akron and UMass, a couple of 0-4 teams, I believe. So it's not an attractive game on paper in terms of you want to sit down and watch this game per se. But sharp money did come in, like I said, -5.5. And it's not, my count, as you could imagine, isn't very high. It's also, kind of not out of balance as well. I'm almost, perfectly balanced on this game in terms of my actual wager count. Obviously, because I took, a sharp bet at the -5.5, I have more money on Akron. But, other than the 5.5, I haven't seen anything else get involved in this one. A couple of ugly teams, but the sharps found value there.
Well, and this is the thing. I mean, even in my set of power ratings, UMass is the lowest team I've ever had. And I think I've been doing this, 4 or 5 years of putting together power ratings. And I still only have this line like Akron -3. So I'm going to have to move UMass down again. And that's the problem here is if UMass gets blown out in this game by Akron, who's clearly a bottom 5 team in college football, I mean, how low do you have to go with UMass? Like, what is the stopping point for, getting any money on this team?
Well, that's kind of, you flip that and say, is UMass this year the equivalent of the Miami Dolphins in NFL this year? I mean, we talked about the lines before with, how Dallas and New England and stuff like that. You're, talking 21.5, 23.5 point spreads in the NFL. I mean, that's just unheard of.
Yeah, for sure. And again, I mean, we'll see. I don't know. UMass is just going to be an overwhelming underdog against just about everybody they play. By the way, for our listeners out there, we may see UMass on this segment again because they play UConn here the end of October, another real gem of a team. I'm sure there'll be some sharp action in that game too.
UConn's like a 44-point dog, I think, this week.
Yeah, and they're going to be favored on the road at UMass too. A UMass team coming off of a bye, and they're going to be at least a touchdown favorite, if not more, probably.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a real fun game to talk about here in about a month or so. But we move on to game 135, 136, another fun one to talk about. Rutgers and Michigan. Michigan up to a 4-touchdown favorite now, but it's the total where you've seen some sharp activity.
Yeah, the spread here ticked up from the 26.5 up to 28. We're pretty much across the board. Everyone's 28. And the move on the total, not a massive move. Again, I mean, obviously this is a correlated game here in terms of the 26 going up to 28 and the total going from 47.5 up to 49.5. That, the total move on my side was sharp money that drove that. 47.5 is where I got bet here, sitting at 49. Like I said, I'm at 49.5. A couple books are at 49. Others sitting at 49 with juice towards the over. So I see, market wide that's pretty much gone the same way. Again, count wise, just not a massive count. And again, I don't have a ton of public money involved in this game on the total at this point. A lot of it probably will come in on Saturday just because you are talking about Michigan and their games always get a lot of support, whether it's for or against them. So, my chart's going to be decent, I think, even with the high spread and the low total here on this one. But over 47.5 is where I took the sharp money.
All right, so we go to Pac-12 after dark action here. Game 145, 146, Washington State and Utah. Before we get into this game specifically, I don't know if you were working during that UCLA-Washington State game, but that thing was insane.
Yeah, I mean, 50 points in a half of football in the second half, that's just like, Well, you said insane. That's pretty much the right word for it. But now that you mentioned that, you look at the Pac-12 in terms of the ratings. I was kind of like flipping through there, and I was like, hey, wait a sec, what? Pac-12? I mean, usually you got a couple of them up there, but I mean, right now I think Oregon is 13, Cal is 15. You got Washington 17, Utah is 19, USC's up there. I mean, it's Pac-12. I mean, representing.
Yeah, for sure. And let's see who represents in this game. Again, Washington State taking on Utah in Salt Lake City. And it's a tough spot for both of these teams, with Washington State coming off that very disappointing loss. Utah loses to USC in a game with huge Pac-12 South implications. How's the market seeing this one?
Yeah, this is one of those, we talk about, it's always good to identify where you've got sharp and public splits. And in terms of like managing your risk, that's one of those key spots that we always look for, because your chart may get, off one side, and it's kind of like you take a look at a game from a bookmaker side of things and say, based on the risk profile of the game, how much you want to go out of hand. This is one of the, one of the more marquee games, one of the late games. So if people are going to kind of look for the last opportunity to pile in on a game, that this is probably one of them that people are going to be jumping on. It's a decent matchup. It'll be on, I think, FS1 or something like that. So we're going to have, decent action on this game. And this is one of those games so that you'll probably get a lot of action on. You kind of anticipate the home favorite getting the support. So again, you're kind of, in terms of a bookmaking side of things, you are kind of booking your anticipated action as it comes in. So we're kind of, looking at favorite money coming in on Utah from the public, and that has been the case. I've got a wager count almost 4-1 on Utah, but as you see, this number kind of ticked up and then ticked right back down. So we got up public money, as you can tell by my chart, almost 4-1 is what drove this up to 7. Got sharp money on Washington State plus 7, and we popped back down to 6. Now the 6 is pretty much across the board. I don't. I could see it going up to 6.5, but that would be just based on public money. Obviously, I think the sharp money that grabbed the 7 was grabbing the key number on 7. But this may tick up from 6 to 6.5, but I can't see it touching 7 again. If it held strong at 6, I wouldn't be surprised either.
So then obviously, if it goes down to 5.5, maybe subsequently 5, that would be another sharp hit on Washington State, probably.
Yeah, and I could definitely see that happening. Yeah.
All right, so we move to game 165, 166 here. This is one of the better games of the weekend. It's not a great weekend for college football, but we can bet on it, so I guess it is a great weekend no matter what. But Kansas State and Oklahoma State here. This is a game that should draw a lot of activity. 7 o'clock game, couple of well-known teams in the Big 12. Should get a pretty big handle on this one. What have you seen so far?
Yeah, it's a decent game as well. I mean, you got a decent spread in terms of the 4. This did open as high as 5 with the favorite at home, Oklahoma State, down to 4 right now. So that kind of gives me the impression that, maybe there was some sharp money out there that came and grabbed the price back. The reason I say that is because my count heavily favors Oklahoma State, right around 4-1 as well. So that's a pretty substantial count for a college football game, 4-1. So I've got, money one way and the price moving down the other way. So that usually indicates a sharp public split. I didn't take that money in-house, but that's just something, for your listeners to kind of look out for, is that, across the board here, it looks like the count is all favoring the favorite at home, Oklahoma State, yet the numbers dropped down from 5 down to 4 where we are right now. The sharp money that I took in-house came on the under. This one did open as high. I think it opened 63. I got bet out with sharp money on under 62.5. We're down to 60 or 59.5 pretty much out of the markets. Even the 59.5 has juice towards the over. So let's call it 60. Under 62.5 is where I got bet.
So we go to the Mountain West here, game 193, 194, Colorado State and Utah State. And judging by the line move in this game, it's sharp and public going the same way.
Yeah, I got, probably no surprise when you got such a big favorite like that. Utah State opened just below the 3-touchdown favorite at 20.5. I opened at 21, and I got bet right away by sharp money there. So Utah State minus 21 is where I got bet, sitting at 24 across the board right now. I even see as high as 24.5. Some books are putting, juice of minus 15 on the 24. When numbers get that high, especially in college football, I shouldn't even say especially college football, regardless whether NFL, CFL, or college football. I think once you get up to 24, really, why are you putting 5 cents on the 24, go to 24.5? But some books do that. I'm sitting at 24 right now. I could see this one ticking up. I just don't know what it's going to take to get sharp money back the other way, but public money is obviously going one side.
Is it just a mindset thing of, maybe you opened the 20.5 and got hit and you're afraid of the game falling 21, 23, 24? Is it just like an unwillingness to embrace that risk?
Well, I mean, for me in house, I opened at 21, so I'm not, as concerned about it. But really, I mean, talked about last week. Really, once you get up, even 10. I mean, 10's not a key number, even in NFL really anymore, with the 2-point conversion and stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you could still say the key numbers are the key numbers with the 3 and the 7, and the 4, the 6, the 10, or whatever. But at this point, you're really not afraid of anything of that. You're really just looking to get some money back the other way, without putting yourself more at risk. If I go up to 24.5, is it going to come back? Probably not, because another book out there has already touched 24.5 and isn't come back down. So I could see the rest of us going that way. And sometimes you get stuck on a game where it's just, you just say, look, I'm not going any higher, and the market's not going any higher, and you sit with it and you take the risk.
All right, last game on the board here in college football, at least in terms of FBS versus FBS matchups. 203-204, UCLA, Arizona. More Pac-12 after dark, maybe a little bit of a chase game for some people out there. Arizona almost a touchdown favorite. What's happening with this game?
Yeah, and I got another case where it's just big public money one way, smaller bets, more bigger bets going the other way with sharp money. This was on UCLA plus the 7.5. So you got UCLA sitting at 1-3 on the road at Arizona, and plus 7.5. This number, I think, opened 7. Got bet up again. Just judging by the chart, it was just public money that drove it up. Again, I'm about 5-1 on this chart here with Arizona. So big, that's big one-sided action driving the home favorite, of course. And sharp money took it back at plus 7.5, and it's gone all the way down to 6.5. I see like some 6.5 minus 15. So, I don't know if I touch 7 again, whether the sharp money is going to grab the plus 7. They did grab it at plus 7.5. Maybe the hook was key for them, but we're probably going to find out, because it's just the way the public money's gone so far. I just think we're going to be forced to go back up to 7. If we sit at 7 and kind of get to two-way action, that'll be great. If it gets bet by sharps again, you'll see it drop down to 6.5. But it's just a feeling that this number might go back up just based on the wager count.
All right, so we move to Sunday here. We move to the NFL, and the first game on the board, game 251-252, Carolina and Houston. And before we talk about the sharp action here, I just want to ask you about this, because I've always been kind of intrigued to know what the thought process is behind opening a game on 5, because we know it's in that dead zone between 4 and 6. My thought process behind it, and I could be very wrong, and I'm not an odds maker, so I don't claim to be, but my thought is that maybe you feel like 4 is too low, 6 is too high, so you open 5 and let the market decide what the number should be.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And you do get to there comes a point where you're talking, your teaser kind of stuff comes into play sometimes on a number, like you 6.5, 7 point teaser. What's that going to do to a number? Maybe not in this case, but still you play around with thoughts like that. You're also looking, buy points and stuff like that. You want to go open up a 4 and they buy it on a 3 or stuff like that. You're always thinking about that. And sometimes, we're just throwing a number out there and letting the market, decide where it goes. I mean, the opinions and information of this whole massive pool of people are what make up the market, and where the numbers go is a reflection of those opinions. Now, people have differing opinions. Public opinions differ from sharps. Sharps differ from other sharps, right? You can have guys. I mean, I remember there was a scenario. I think it was last year, no, 2 years back on a total. It was one of those wacky games like Oklahoma State or whatever, where between 79.5 and 80, there was just massive action going back and forth between different sharps. Every time we touched down to 79.5, we got hammered on the over. Every time we touched 80.5, we got hammered on the under. So these sharp guys have their key numbers as well. They're waiting for a price. And they play it. So you're really, trying to move your action based on the market and the varying opinions. And those opinions can be sharp versus public. It can be public versus public, and it can be sharps versus sharps. That happens all the time. And really, kind of when these numbers kind of consensus come out, what I'm doing is kind of anticipating how my action is going to come in. Like if I'm looking at a game like Houston and Carolina, I'm thinking to myself that I believe, it's just my opinion, that Houston is still an overvalued team. It's one where the public is going to continue to overvalue, where I think the sharps are going to look to find value on Carolina. That was just my opinion of that game. I'm kind of predicting where the action is going to come in, not the actual result of the game.
Yeah, that's an important distinction too, is that, you guys open the numbers and the market's what really sets the number from that point forward. That's something that I think a lot of people have a major misconception about here in the business, especially when, let's say Cleveland and Baltimore is a 28-21 game or something like that. And everyone's going to say, oh, Vegas knows because the number was 7. Well, the number opened 6 and the market moved it up to 7. So it is an important distinction that I think a lot of people don't really realize. But in any event, this Carolina-Houston game opened 5. What happened after that?
Well, I got bet by sharp money, Adam. Glad you asked. Yeah, I mean, right on cue. This is one of those games where, you got the feeling, or I had the feeling that we were going to get money one side from the public on Houston, and I think Carolina is one of those teams where maybe not, the quarterback situation is kind of a positive for them for the first time in probably since the offseason. And Houston is one of those teams where I think from the sharp side is just one where they're looking to sell high. Houston at 2-1, Carolina 1-2 is kind of like a sell high overrated position on Houston, I believe, and that's been reflected in my charts as well. I'm almost 6-1 favoring Houston, so I got a very one-sided chart here in terms of the public sharp split. I have more money on Carolina right now because of the bigger bets that the sharp players make. So a sharp public split here, +5 is where the sharp money came in, and the public was still betting Houston. So this is one of those games where 5 perhaps is not a key number, but if I go to 4.5, I don't think I'm going to get sharp money back at 4.5. I think I can go back to 4.5, and the public will continue to lay it. But it's kind of one of those cat and mouse things, and I'm just kind of looking out of the marketplace right now, and what I see are 4s across the board, even some 4 dog 15s. So I'm holding still instead of going to 4.5. And again, we're doing this on Thursday. I got so much time before Sunday rolls around.
Yeah, for sure. And again, one more reminder for our listeners here that may be looking at their odds screens following along. Pay attention to the context of which sports books are showing which numbers. Some of the more public shops out there still on the 4.5. A lot of the other places at 4. Gives you an idea, especially with what we just talked about sharp and public splits, and about where the exposure is at the different operators that are out there.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Adam, because I think without naming names, I mean, there's a couple of very solid books out there that take a lot of action from a lot of sharps. You could say they're sharp books in terms of they welcome a lot of sharp action. There's a couple out there, and one in particular, a very, very public book where they may run 2 different numbers, or if you win, they kind of chop you down to where you kind of go away for them. And like there was a game, I think it was the Carolina game. I think it was a couple of weeks ago where Carolina was favored by. I think there was one of the sharper books had Carolina like -6, and what I'm going to call a public book was -7, -115. So sometimes just looking at knowing the profile of certain books and knowing their numbers gives you an idea where the money is. I mean, if you tell me the sharp book is running -6 on the game and what I'm going to call square book is running -7, -115, that tells you all you need to know, that the squares are running one way and the sharps are going the other way. So profiling the books is a very good asset, and you don't even have to pay for the Don Best screen. You could just use like the free service that they have. It may be a bit delayed and stuff like that, but you still get a good idea of the splits in the market.
All right, so we move here to the NFC East, game 255, 256, the Redskins and the Giants. What's going on here?
Yeah, Redskins and Giants. You're looking forward to that one, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one. And what was the other one? Oh, Jacksonville, Denver. I mean, if there were 2 games I wasn't going to sit down for, those 2 would be it. But actually, I mean, the Monday night game is not a pretty picture either. Washington and the Giants. Yes, Washington obviously not looking so good at 0-3, and the Giants, you've got at least a little bit of enthusiasm, I guess, surrounding them in terms of the quarterback and how well he played and stuff like that. So what I'm kind of find interesting is that I've really got kind of 2-way action on this game, and it's come even like from the public. It's come Washington +3 and public with public money, and also public money on the Giants -2.5. It's like they're kind of seeing value in the key numbers out there. Books are kind of split on this. If you look at the screen, between 2.5 -115 or 3 dog 20. Washington +3 -115 is where I did get sharp money. So this number has come down when it did touch the key number 3. I think it opened as low as 2, and like I said, from what I'm seeing, it just got bet up by public money from there. I just like my account, below 2.5 is about 2-1 favoring the Giants, and when I got to 3, it's not quite 2-1, but does favor the Redskins at that point. But +3, -115. I know the quarterback situation with the Washington, it looks like he's going to be fine, Keenum, so he'll be back out there again. And of course, Giants are looking towards the future, if you will. But I think defensively, perhaps, that's why the Sharps really kind of looked and identified the difference here is that Washington defensively, I think, is probably where the kind of tipped the scales for them.
All right, so we go to the next game. Game 257, 258, and I may be better off playing the lottery here instead of taking the side that I think I want to go with, but I guess we'll kind of wait and see because I wouldn't be alone on this one with the Chargers laying a big number against the Dolphins, but some interesting sharp money on this game.
Yeah, it's interesting too. I mean, I guess the number got to a point, or the opposition got to a point where the public finally, decided to take a piece of Miami. So I've got a count that's not bad in terms of my wager count. It slightly actually favors Miami. We're talking about a team that has looked very, very ugly, and even against Dallas last week, I don't know, they ended up getting beat pretty bad, but even at the start, they were kind of competitive. The game was close, I guess, if you will. But if you watch that game, and Dallas just looked kind of flat when they first got out there. So this is the first time, so far this season. I know we're only in week 4, but it is the first time this season that I got money on Miami. Sharp money came +16.5. We're down to 15.5 and 15 right now on the Chargers. So I'm sitting at 15. There are some 15.5s out there, but +16.5 is where that sharp money came in. And the thing too is if you look at the total of this game, I know the other totals with Miami were higher than this. We're sitting at 44. There's a 43.5 out there. Number opened at 45. So even the total's been bet down as well. And I think part of the reflection of this total dropping down and the spread dropping down and the sharp money on Miami is maybe not so much a buy into Miami as it is a sell on the Chargers. And also we talked about, last year, the Chargers were one of those teams in terms of the pace of play were very, very slow. They just don't run a whole lot of plays. And when you have a slow pace to a game, it's hard to cover a big number like 16.5 and 17.
Well, again, I mean, that's something I talk about on all the editions of Bang the Book Radio here, looking for context clues in the market. And I talked about this with regards to college football on Thursday's show, looking to see what the line moves are telling you about the game flow. And also here, the Chargers traveling cross-country, early kickoff, maybe expecting a sluggish start that can keep Miami in the game. So that's also part of the equation here.
Yeah, you combine a sluggish start with a low total and a team that plays a slow pace. It's... a lot of clues out there.
Yeah, for sure. Makes it tough to get margin, as you said. So maybe this is the week where Miami actually does cover a number. Oh. I don't know. I guess we'll kind of
maybe it is.
Wait and see. All right, game 267, 268 here. Tampa Bay takes on the Los Angeles Rams. Long trip for the Buccaneers here. What's going on with this game?
Yeah, this one too. And again, it's kind of a trend that started last year in terms of the total plays going on towards the over with Tampa Bay games. I know this initially opened like 49.5 and came down at first, but been pushed back up. 48.5 is where I took sharp money on the over. So over 48.5, I'm up to 49.5 as well. I think I'll be back to the original opener of 49.5 or 50 that was out there real quick. And again, it's just kind of like, game flow. You look at these things. You look at the differences between home and away splits with the quarterback Goff, for example. I think too, the Rams defense might be a bit overrated. Tampa Bay, I think if you give Winston any kind of time, he can push the ball down the field deep, and that's probably what's driving this. I mean, I think, the more pressure you get on Winston, I think the worse he does, but you could probably say that about a lot of quarterbacks, but he's not really like the best check down kind of guy. He's good with the middle and deep balls. And the other thing too, kind of like the narrative that falls with this over is that if the Rams defense is maybe not as good as everyone thinks, the spread's sitting at -9, so you figure the Rams are going to get ahead of the game. And what's that going to force the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to do? Well, it's going to force them to go, be aggressive when they're playing from behind and push the ball downfield, which again is going to lead to a back and forth kind of total. So, you can't predict how the game is going to be played, but again, you look for stuff like that in terms of what happens when Tampa Bay gets behind. Now, are they going to have, if they get behind, now are they going to have success against the Rams? Now, if you watch it early, if this is kind of a back and forth run the game, you're going to say, okay, this is not going to get there because these guys are just beating each other up on the line. They're running the ball well. They're eating a lot of clock that way. But I think if the Rams strike quick and Tampa Bay has to play catch up, this number easily gets there.
All right, so we got one more game with sharp action, then one more game I know you want to talk about and I want to talk about here too. But the last game with sharp action, game 269-270, Seattle and Arizona out in the NFC West. What's going on here?
Yeah, again, I think there was a lot of kind of excitement, I guess, if you will, about Arizona with the new coach coming in and the changes and stuff like that with the quarterback situation. But quarterback in the NFL and that offense in the NFL just hasn't had a whole lot of success so far. We'll say that. I think the other problem too with Arizona is all the injuries on defense, and we'll get to that. With the sharp money, we'll let the cat out of the bag. Was on Seattle the side at -4. We're up to -5.5 and -5 right now. I'm using 5.5 myself. Total wise, this one also opened at 46.5. I got sharp money at 47. I'm guessing it might have been sharp money that drove up initially as well to get to the 47. Sharp money in house is at 47. I'm up to 48 right now, and I'm just really, really tempted to hit the 48.5 and be the first one on the board at that, and I probably will right after this call. So -4 and over 47 is where the sharp money came in. And again, like Arizona, in terms of their defense, they've just had so many injuries. So you get the feeling that Seattle's probably going to have success with their offense. They're also probably going to have success getting pressure on Arizona and making the quarterback makes it kind of see what he can do coming from behind. I think the Arizona is just right now. Just in terms of the side itself, I think they're just a sell team in terms of the sharp money right now. Offensive line issues, defensive issues with injuries. It's just a tough spot for them, and obviously Seattle can put up a whole lot of points that we saw last week.
All right, so game 275, 276. It does appear like somebody out there in the market got hit with some sharp money on this game, but you and I were talking about it before we started recording. You told me to make sure I mentioned this game. Again, game that's going to get a big handle, two very public, well-known teams in that Sunday night time slot. But what are you expecting here from this game in terms of the action that we see?
Yeah, I know this line did open, and again, Dallas on the road is kind of like on a Sunday night football. That's one of those spots where sharps usually look for home dogs on Sunday night, Monday night, Thursday night. That's just kind of like a given. Sharps look for those spots. We know that well. But this one, to me, it just kind of seems like a number that's going to tick back up to the 3, and I might even see 3+ juice. In house, I haven't seen anything to indicate why the number's dropping from 3 down to 2.5. And I think you have different ways of handicapping games, and there's the different theories about how to go about them. Even sharps have their own different ways in terms of what kind of narratives they're looking at, whether they're just analytics based, all that kind of stuff. I mean, everyone's got their own opinion how to a different way to cook an egg, right? And this game, I just get the feeling the public is going to be on the home dog. My early count kind of indicates that it's not a massive count going the other way, so I'm not going to say that public money drove this off the 3 down to 2.5 because I haven't seen it in house, and I just don't think that's an accurate statement. But I do feel that this number is going to get driven back up. I think if you look at things, stats in terms of points per play and yards per play, all that kind of stuff, I think the numbers are going to overwhelmingly favor Dallas, and I think this number is going to touch 3 again. If it went 3 in juice, I wouldn't be surprised. The only good thing is I don't think it's going to go off 3. I think I'm probably going to get public money back the other way with the Saints. So this is one of the interesting games to watch for the week in terms of the market perspective.
Should be a whole lot of fun to watch. And again, it kind of peels back the curtain here on what the risk manager position entails, and also thinking about how some of these games are going to move. So Brent, always a pleasure, man. Thank you so much for joining me. Really appreciate it. And we'll talk to you again next week.
Awesome, Adam. Thanks for having me on, and look forward to a great weekend.